So this is again an experiment, and let's see where this goes. So strategy is a word that I've come across since the time that I started working um, 25, 30 years back. Um, why I say 30 years, there have been different kinds of small jobs that I would do. And then if I go even further, I would be manning, sitting at my dad's grocery shop sometimes. But anyways, I think the idea is I've been hearing the word strategy for a long, 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 long time, and I have been puzzled by what this word really means. Of course, in the day to day, we take these words, we exchange them, we sort of all the funny things that we do with words and concepts. Sometimes we just trade them, and we don't have the time to go deeper into the word, the archaeology of the word, the excavation of the word, the emergence of what it, why did the word come into play, and so strategy is also one such word. Um, uh, uh, and then there are so many things that you take borrow from the world, more like hunter-gatherer of concepts and hunter-gatherer of information. And you take them and you try and understand, you just try to puppet the meaning, puppet the definitions given by somebody else, or it's not puppeting, it's just that you believe it's the utilitarian approach. You obviously cannot sit down with all the words in the dictionary and go down as to the origins, the etymology, and the work. So you obviously you create your own niche, you create your own conceptual linguistic niche, sort of niche construction, and you work with them. And then even within that, you look at certain words where you go a little more deeper, and then so imagine you have a bunch of concepts and a bunch of words. In some, you would have spent some more time going deeper into what it means, why it means, and how is it used. And in some cases, it's the absolute opposite in the sense you just take it and run with it. And I think we all have that conceptual linguistic niche that we have for the world that we live in or we want to live in. So strategy is one such word, and for a long period of time, I was here. I would take the word, I would just throw it in the conversation, or tell me about your strategy, or isn't this a wrong strategy, or is it a competitive strategy, or as Peter Thiel says, competition for losers? Do you have a monopolistic approach, a monopolistic strategy? Um, and then so on and so forth. Then you also come across various definitions around, resources. That there are resources which are going to be there are some things which are going to be scarce and some things perhaps abundant. What you end up doing is understand how you can view them and then see how you want to use the scarce resource, scarce opportunity, scarce abilities, bandwidth, in order that it achieves something that you have in mind, or heart or soul. So that's a basic background. You take these definitions, strategies about some choices, about some constraints, about what you want to be standing as. If you want your organization to stand for something, if you want to have a mission, a vision, how will you achieve that vision and mission? Because you're not the lone operator on the planet. You have your own internal team and organization of people, processes, systems, and all tangible, intangible things internally. And then obviously you have the environment, the political forces, the environmental forces, the economic forces, the social forces, the technological forces, the legal forces, and competition. Sometimes you have very direct competition, sometimes you have very indirect competition, and and so you operate in an environment with various forces, some constraining and some facilitating. Internally, some forces constraining and some facilitating, and you have a vision, you or your team. Um, and depending on how it is, top down, bottoms up, or a hybrid, or inside out, outside in, and or a hybrid. of that. And then you try and create a space for yourself. How will you best achieve what you stand for? And that's perhaps one way to look at strategy. Um, we could also go a little deeper into this, and or maybe from a different angle to this. So there are the physical objects, there are the emotional objects, there are the psychological objects, there are the social objects. And even as I speak with you, if you notice, just a few seconds back, my body adjusted. I adjusted my body, or my body adjusted to the thing that was affording the sitting and talking. So I am sitting and I'm talking, but as I sit and talk, my body is interacting with the surface to which it is exposed, and it is interacting with that surface on an ongoing basis. And the body is already creating its own strategy if I'm not aware of it. So the moment I feel discomfort, the slightest of the micro discomfort, the body would adjust a bit, and then it would create a condition for something else to be in a slightly different uh, facilitation or constraining. So, for example, if there is too much of physical constraint that I feel with the way I'm sitting right now, that discomfort will start showing in my emotions, might start showing in my psychology of what I'm taking in, what I'm putting out, might start showing up in the social objects that social objects could be people. Not object should not be taken in the physicality of it. It's just a placeholder. So what are the rules, norms, incentives? People, what feedback they're giving, how am I reading the feedback, what's the power equation, and all of that. And what are the things around me? How can I use it? What are they doing to me? How's the lighting like? How's the atmosphere like? And a whole lot of things at this moment are already in interactivity. And in that interactivity, there is the element of body, and body doing its own strategy execution. Uh, uh, unless, unless, unless I create a practice where I say that I won't go with what my body takes up as strategy over a period of time. I want to intervene into it or co-vene into it in the manner where I start becoming comfortable with. So imagine I start an isolated practice of um, meditation or some wisdom practice or some contemplation practice. And I become more and more aware of my body and the kind of discomforts that it starts to throw up in its default mode. I would quickly see that at the slightest of the discomfort, the body wants to react to the discomfort, wants to adapt to the discomfort. And then maybe there are adjustments happening in my body posture, in my gesture, and how it shows up in my emotions and swells the emotion in a certain way or moves the emotion in a certain way. And how that creates condition or a nested relationship with my psychology of the moment, of the state, of the here and now. And how does it connect with my hope and optimism and trauma and cosmology, values, belief systems? At the same time, interacting with the social aspects of it, the rules, norms, incentives, people, things around, and so on and so forth. So this, if over a period of time, if I become aware of my body, my physical body, um, the physical object, I can develop a revised relationship with the comforts and discomforts of the body. And they lend themselves very differently to the strategies that I had and how I'm executing them, or the new emergent strategies that might come across as we go along. Um, so we could have essentially so there is the physical body, and so yeah, the point that I wanted to actually come at is there would be some things that are strategies already because of the species that we are. The strategies of the genes, maybe the strategies of cells, the strategies of our nervous systems, the strategies of our coping mechanisms, the strategy of a digestive systems, voluntary, involuntary, sympathetic, parasympathetic systems. And those strategies are not on my radar. I only see them at certain threshold that they cross and they start sending notifications around discomforts, pain, dis-ease, sort of thing, or pleasures or attraction or you know, something that uh, rises up in my conscious awareness. So, in some sense, there are implicit strategies that are already there with the species as a species. And now these implicit strategies uh, could come in form of habits and biases also, our desires, our relationships with success and failure, and so on and so forth. And all of them are playing a role on an ongoing basis as I speak with you. So, so where do we get the word strategy? So there is the implicit strategy, subconscious strategy, strategies that are already at play as I interact with myself, with others, with things, with goals, missions, values, and the emergent. And then um, there could be the opposite of this, which is a conscious strategy. So there's a subconscious strategy, the underconscious strategy, and there's a conscious strategy. So both the conscious strategies and the subconscious strategies, they 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 have some kind of relationship. And over a period of time, we need to discover how they play around in those in the way we want certain things in the world. There could be a case around strategy where we see that there are certain things which are scarce. What is strategy? I mean, what is strategy is an interesting question. But if we halt and we say, okay, what are the variants of this question, or what is this question nested along with? So we would come to a point where we could say, who is the strategizer or co-strategizer, who is being strategized or who's being co-strategized. And so that's an interesting question. Why is there a need for strategy? Uh, are there spaces where strategies don't work? Are there places, are there spaces, domains, context, phases where strategy shouldn't be there? It's not the question of strategy. So there is, what is strategy? Who is the strategizer, strategized, co-strategizer, co-strategized? Why is there a need for strategy? Where can you implement strategy? So can you implement a certain strategy can be implemented only in a certain context. If I go to a homeopathic hospital and I realize that the doctor comes at 9:30, but I also know that patients start trickling in at 8:45. So if I reach anywhere closer to 9:30, when the doctor really comes, um, I might have a longer wait time because there is non-linearity between the 45. So if somebody reaches 45 minutes earlier than the doctor arrives, when people start trickling in at 8:45, you get a number, a token number, a queue number. And then there is a wait time of 45 plus the time that doctor is going to see the patient. But there could be another case where you come closer to 9:30, a lot of people have trickled in, and there is non-linearity in the amount of time that the doctor is going to spend with each of the patient, and it kind of can swell it sometimes. So the wait time can be more. So now somebody can strategize and say, hey, look, it's better to reach at 8:45 so that the overall wait time is low and you come out of that conversation, the treatment or consultation faster. Fine. So, but I cannot implement this strategy right now here. It's a strategy that requires certain context. When I'm speaking with you, I need to have a very different approach, a different strategy. Why am I talking right now? What do I want from you? Um, um, why have I put this cosmos picture behind me? So there are the elements of the macro strategy and the micro strategies in some sense. A macro having a different span scale of consideration. Micro having a different span scale of the consideration, more here and now, this, there, then that. Um, but both interacting and both present here. In some sense, they have an interaction in the here and now, this that I'm doing with you. So there is this aspect of strategy. I know I've been rambling a bit, but I'm just trying to first create certain kind of placeholder for these questions to emerge. And maybe on this video or another video, we might come to some other thing. So there are these interesting questions. What is strategy? Why strategy? When strategy? Where strategy? Whose strategy? Whose strategy? Whose strategy and who is strategize? And there could be many more interesting questions that come along. Um, uh, so when you look at wise strategy, I think we are essentially looking at uh, trading of trading, harvesting, manipulating, exploiting scarcities of some kind. Um, and there could be man-made scarcities, nature-made scarcities. There could be nature-made scarcities made worse by man-made scarcities. There could be nature-made scarcities which have been solved for in some way by man-made ingenuity and enterprise. So there are these aspects of strategy um, where you want to deal with scarcities of some kind. So you are essentially looking at scarcities. Um, what's the scarcity when it comes to individual? What is the scarcity in the interpersonal space? What is the scarcity in the intergroup space? What is the scarcity in intercompany space, inter-industry, inter-nation, inter-community, um, interculture space? And I think those scarcities are what we are trying to get at. So the scarcities could somewhere threaten our survivals. So you could have survival-based some scarcities that speak to survival or have a weightage of survival in how they're created. And then there could be some strategies which are, let's say, non-survival, and there's something else. It could be uh, looking for social objects, status signaling, sexual selection, uh, directly, indirectly. And then there could be psychological scarcity of the amount of cognitive overload that you can take at a time and how you can process and the bandwidth available to react or respond. You know, what's that available? Do you need to do that immediately, or do you have space? Can you take pauses? Can you come back to it? So those could be the psychological scarcity. The emotional scarcities could be there could be certain um things that we long for and certain things that we don't want, and yet we have to face them, and we want less and less of them. Um, so there could be those scarcities that we're trying to manage. Um, all right. I'll hold here for a minute and see where we can come back in a minute. Right. One of the things that can come up is I remember coming across and just yesterday speaking with Mr. Viplav Jain, sorry, Mr. Viplav Nigam, um, and I was having this conversation, and I could recall something that I have been following the work of John Vervaeke for some time and Ian McGilchrist. And I think there is this angle that is coming to cognition, information, knowledge, where there is something called as 4P, kind of four kinds of knowledge, 4P, propositional, perspectival, participatory, procedural knowledge, where what John Vervaeke says is today's time we have entered the world of um, uh, propositional tyranny. There is too much of propositions that are being hurled at each other or fed to each other. Um, uh, we aren't taking the perspectival approach, perspectives of each other, participatory, that there's something that when we come together, there would be an emergence which I and you, us, would not be able to create independently. And then there is the procedural, the kind of strategy and knowledge and thinking that cannot be explicated. Um, so while they talk about knowledge, maybe we can think of propositional strategy, perspectival strategy, participatory strategies, and procedural strategies. Um, and a classic case that come to mind is many a times one has this experience that you're able to do something over a period of time and you become slightly better at it or exceedingly better at it, but you're not able to explain how you are able to do it. So you do it, but you're not able to explain um, how you really do it. And then obviously the other person, no matter how articulated you have been on the how you do it, is unable to take and just transfer that learning and start doing exactly what you're doing. So, case in point is cricket in India. Sachin Tendulkar has been one of the top players of all times, one of the many top players of all times. And then there's a way in which he has an understanding, a knowledge, a wisdom, a strategy when he faces this next ball that is going to come to him and he's going to play it. And yet, as he does that, his ability or inability to translate it to the other, and the other is to absorb it and imbibe it and embody it, may not so happen because then there is Sachin Tendulkar who is different from Mahendra Singh Dhoni is different from Virat Kohli is different from Rahul Dravid is different from Saurav Ganguly is different from Javagal Srinath, Kapil Dev. All of these players are different. In some sense, they're all playing cricket. That's a similarity. They're all playing the same team. That's a similarity. They all play the same game. That's a similarity. How they come to that game on that particular day, in that particular over, in that particular ball, uh, could have variances in things. So, so there could be the case where while strategies are talked about, but they have to be lived on a day-to-day basis. The talking of it may not be able to capture a lot. And it would also mean that a lot of people will have to imbibe, assimilate, synchronize, excavate that which cannot and has not been articulated. And then they have to take it and implement it. Uh, they have to they are playing the same game, but somebody would be Kumble, somebody would be Srinath, somebody would be um, Gavaskar, Shastri, all these different players. They're playing the same game, but there is a common strategy, but they're also having a personal kind of thing that they want to contribute. And so there could be this element of strategy that could be useful to look at, maybe. Um, so yeah, I think you covered a ground on strategy in some different sense. Um, uh, and hence, what you want to do is, um, as I think in my last call with Bob Emiliani, uh, became clear for, though I've been practicing it, but I think I may not have articulated, indexed, and uh, held it uh, as a practice suite. Uh, so his idea of stopping the whole talking approach, storytelling approach, narrative approach to strategy, but also seeing what people are doing, the observing part of it. So we observe what's happening, how is it happening, and then over a period of time, based on the observation, you maybe alone observation, maybe mixed with then narratives and back and forth of observation and narratives. and maybe something else. And then you see uh, what is it that you're trying to do? Are you doing it? Um, and what does it feel? What's working and what's not working? In word of Mike Carter's, what's working and what's not working as you observe it or as people tell it. And then, is there something that is emergent here? There's an emergent strategy. Something's really working, or something seems to be an edge case and could be a big exponential case, but we just are caught up in our constraining of a lot of variety, in words of Netflix founder, um, or Stafford Beard, that an organization has a certain variety it can interact with in the environment. So there's a certain variety that the environment wants, companies want, people want, in civic spaces and public spaces and cultural spaces and business spaces. And the kind of variety that is afforded by this organization. And if you have this much variety and this is the demand, either you'll just have this kind of a coupling, or they themselves might shift because somebody else is offering them a different kind of variety, more or better or a different kind, or some kind of a effectiveness, efficiency approach. Um, so I have recorded this quite a bit, and I don't know how this will come out, but it's just a initial set of questions that I'm trying to come at this uh, again from the first person, coming again, going back to basics. One last point that I would like to add is so there have been a bunch of thinking devices or useful devices that I use uh, when I interact on a concept, doing conceptual linguistic niche deconstruction, reconstruction, emergence. Is that I ask, is this concept connected to a child? What's the relevance of strategy in a child who's just a newborn, a 2-year-old? What's the how does the concept speak to live in this phase? What's the relevance of the concept strategy to a prisoner, to another prisoner who's on a death row, to a person facing terminal disease, um, to a person who's just lost the most loved person in her or his life? What's the relevance of the word strategy for these people? And I think when we come to that, I think there is some kind of humility that might come in to when we are crafting for, or when we're creating conditions for strategies, part of the conscious strategies and part of the subconscious, and the dance between the two, that we don't know how these different people in these different phases, states of their lives have connections to the word strategy, concept of strategy. I'll halt here. I might come back and record something else around it, or maybe these are just initial bunch of questions that help deconstruct. Thank you.